I think in this position knight e7 is strong, but let's just check that out. This is a variation I didn't prepare earlier, so I'm just going to switch replica on here. Knight e7. Okay, this is good apparently. Takes. And now even though white is a bishop down here, believe it or not, this is massively favouring white. For example, check. And now check would be winning the queen. So, rook takes g6. So Anand very wisely, didn't play the move king takes f8. He wants to keep his own attack. He doesn't want to become the victim of an attack himself, especially this rook blasting down to the 7th rank with checks. So what he plays is a very nice move. The only move, in fact, to guarantee an advantage. King h7. So he's offering that rook. Now, if in the game rook g3 was played, now if we play knight takes e7, then there's that mating 2, which we saw earlier. I hope you can spot it. Again, 3 seconds. Okay, it's the rook h4 check idea. So king takes and then queen g4 mate. So knight e7 is not a good idea. Topalov plays rook g3. Now Anand simply takes that rook, and after hg plays a very dangerous check, which gives him support of the e2 square, which means his rook is going to hit the 7th rank for dangerous tactical possibilities against the white king. So king h2 check. Now king g1. Anand has the luxury now of being able to win by force the white queen. He plays rook g2 check, winning the white queen, because if king h1, there's queen h3 mates now. And no, this isn't a very good imbalance to have rook and knight versus queen. The queen in this particular position is absolutely decisive. Check, and now the move c4. He could have also perhaps just taken the pawn. After a5, rook f6, white cannot possibly coordinate the rook and knight versus the queen. He's probably just really annoyed with himself at the course of this game, and he's playing a few moves in autopilot mode. Queen e4 is a very good move though, stopping knight f5, stopping rook b7. White's in a kind of zugzwang almost. He's going to lose material if he's not careful. Things are going to drop off now. After king h7, another waiting move, but a killing waiting move. So the rook can't leave protection of knight. If the knight moves, then there's probably an horrendous check somewhere winning the rook at some point. Things are falling apart now. In fact, after queen e5, Anand first goes for the b pawn. So knight f7, he wins the b pawn. And then he comes back with his queen to g7. And here, Topalov has had enough. The knight cannot be defended here with rook d7 because of queen g4 check, winning the rook. So Topalov resigned here. And he certainly can't play like rook h6, just takes and then this pawn will be easily winning, or just even king g8. There's nothing. The rook and knight are no match for the queen in this passed pawn here. So what a game! This light squared bishop, which is usually the classic problem in this kind of classical Queen's Gambit decline position. The Queen's Gambit came out with a massive vengeance in this game. Let's go back in overview and summary. So d4, d5, and we have the Queen's Gambit declined, and in particular the Lasker defense with knight e4, which I would consider just a drawing tool, a way of trying to reach equality, have a draw so you can do better in the next round. If you're a professional, it's good to draw with black in particular. If you're a club player, club players take more risk generally, especially in leagues without Germans and adjudications. They take more risk. They don't mind massive imbalances to the position. But here, there's no major issues usually for white. It's black that usually has to try and gradually solve the problem of the Queen's bishop. But the innovation, as far as I'm aware, from this game, from the Yusupov beaten paths in this position, is this idea here of not playing a5 to passively support c5, but letting the c pawn become isolated. So Anand went for piece activity, sacrificing his own structure. And White wasn't that careful to preserve the bishop. He wasn't that bothered to preserve the light square bishop. So making this piece have the potential to be a real monster later on this diagonal. So b takes, now bishop b7, and this c pawn proves itself, because of this bishop, to not be such an exploitable weakness. You know, black is putting the pressure now on the d file and these diagonals, and causing now some major concessions, these weakening pawn moves which can never ever be retracted. So Topalov's weakened himself, his king safety, and even so here he could have just repeated with queen c2, but now he gets a bit adventurous with rook a3, and instead of going for the pawn, he decides, well, if I can't go for it, I'll blockade it. So we have this knight maneuver to a5 now, to c4, to blockade the pawn. The problem is, you know, black's laughing here, because that wasn't supposed to be the major issue with having an isolated queen pawn, just a blockade here, because black's still got, you know, these guys to liberate his position, to try and rip open this bishop. He's got potential for loads of counterplay, and he starts that potential with the move e5. So if White does nothing, you know, e4 from Anand will give a very aggressive position. f4, you know, maybe black can just double and play rook d3, stuff like that, horrible stuff. And you know, maybe if there's a pawn on f4, maybe even the bishop can come out later, b7 to c8, queen e6, you know, checks, as well as domination of the d file. So Topalov, he wasn't keen to allow black to play e4. He played e4 himself. The problem is it falls victim to a positional pawn sack now to really maximise that bishop. So f5. And now White's position just crumbles. Absolutely crumbles now. So e takes, e4. This is a positional sacrifice which is totally in the logic of the position, and if you followed how the game evolved, it really matches, you know, what black's, you know, issues should be in this opening. This queen's bishop is not just an issue, it's a major asset now that it's been so successfully solved. It's a major attacking piece against the white king. So rook d4 is also a major beautiful square for black to be able to use. And now, you know, Anand at leisure is just simply going for the white king, as though this is some sort of, you know, fun, exciting club match with the king stuck on h4. So queen takes g6. There is an opportunity for patzers to go wrong here. In this position, if rook g7, that would have allowed an exchange of queens after check and queen f5. But Anand is no patzer. Although he doesn't play the most clinical, you know, computer move, he plays a very good move in its own right. You know, rook e7 sets up vicious tactical ideas of rook e3 and bishop g2s. So check, and now another very good move. Anand does not blow his whole advantage just to be a piece up with king takes f8, which would allow knight takes and rook a7. No, he's going for attack. He wants his rooks on the 7th rank, not Topalov's. So he plays king h7. Let Topalov have the material, and he wants the attack. So rook g3. Topalov cannot take on e7 because of the rook h4 check and queen g4 mate. So rook g3, and now this infiltration to the 7th rank is decisive. It wins the white queen, and with that the coordination now of rook and knight is certainly not enough against the black queen. And the c pawn, which was supposedly a weakness, is now being created, ironically, into a very dangerous pass pawn as well. So there's a real reversal of values from what should have been, in theory, you know, a weak structure, and black not having too much counterplay, to black having loads of counterplay, and triumphing, you know, with the queen and the passed c pawn. So with this victory, Anand has retained his title of world champion. and deservedly so. He put up a very solid performance throughout all the games, and he leaves it for black to, in the last game, to deviate from the normal Slav defence yawning territory to something at least different and a thrilling game, really, where, you know, the White King was crawling up the board a little bit. Hope you enjoyed it. Please leave any comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.